The body of Kate Vaughan has been found on the coastal shores of the city. She was found around the hour of 7 a.m. this morning. From first indications, it seems as if she has been stabbed in the region of the heart. Our sources claim this is the resurgence of the once sought-after serial killer, the killer Tag. Investigators have already reopened the investigation, and the police have sought after new strategies to contain and arrest the killer.
When I got the call from Captain Helley, I didn't hesitate for 1 second. To hunt down the killer Tag would be a peak of my accomplishments. But I felt a cold feel in the air. I didn't know if it was fatigue or the cold, or even something else. I clearly remember the bad feeling I got when I walked down those steps, as if something was telling me that this was no ordinary killer. This is Detective Samuel George Smith. The time is 8:15 a.m. January 14th, 2021. The murder has occurred along the coastal shores of the city. The victim was stabbed in the region of the heart, with severe wounds to the top of the chest. Her head has been cut, signs that she has fallen during the fight. A damp cloth covered in blood, the one used to wipe the blade, no doubt. If this is the case, then the blood must be the victim's. The killer's murder weapon has been identified, but it's been wiped clean using the cloth that was found near the body. No signs of the prints anywhere on the knife. It's possible that the killer was wearing gloves. Captain Helley sent me a memo. Come by his office as soon as possible. I wonder why he sent me there now. Nevertheless, I'll return to the scene another day. I've got what I came for. I should be able to make a brief idea of what's going on. Helley sent me a message when I got to his office. It was to meet my new partner, Amanda Tyson. Partner? I've worked alone for years. Why has he given me a partner now?
Before entering Captain Helley's office, this task seemed like any other I have encountered. Know about the killer, find him, case solved. But it was when I entered to find the figure of my future partner, when I felt this vibe. A vibe that could keep you awake for days, one which I felt unfamiliar with. Ah, Detective Smith, I gather. Agent Amanda Tyson. It's good to meet you.
Detective Tyson, pleased to meet you.
So, what do we know so far?
The victim is identified as Kate Vaughan, murdered on the coastal shores at 7 a.m. this morning. We found a bloody cloth at the scene. It may be that the killer wiped off the blood that splattered on the murder weapon. Our sources show that the stabbing is a repeat of a previous known serial killer, one whom we never apprehended, the killer Tag.
I see. Why the name Tag?
It's possible the killer tags his victims through some sort of action. Maybe a relationship, setting up the eventual murder, possibly. I'm to meet with the coroner this evening to analyse today. Captain Helley needs the old files recovered from the basement floor. I'm sure you can cope with this small task.
Okay, this shouldn't be a problem.
Let's see if my new partner can carry out this task. I have a knack for finding the potholes in people. From her records, there's one glaring sign.
As far back as I can remember, I've always been intimidated by small spaces. When I enter a dark, compressed space, I start to panic. I get anxious, scared, and I have to leave right away. Yeah, you've heard the name. Claustrophobia. Well, I've decided to fight my fear. I won't let it interfere with the job in hand. The fate of the case is in my hands. I just need to stay calm, control my breathing, take deep breaths, and everything will be okay. I think I found the files. Killer tag files 2019. That's it. From the looks of the old files, the killer is male, predominantly white. He lives in an urban, run-down community. He doesn't own a car, but uses transport a lot to his advantage. He does work, but his career allows him free time. This suspect fits the profile well, and so does he. Not many others stand out, and these two suspects have quite the strong resemblance. Well, it looks like my work is done. I now have two prime suspects. I've got to ring Smith, give him the news.
While Detective Tyson was handling the old files, I was eager to see what the coroner had found in the deep wounds chiselled into the chest of our victim. I've always had a knack for reconstructing a murder. All I needed was the results from the coroner.
Good evening, Detective. We're ready to get started. If you prefer, you can wait outside.
I'd rather stay here if you don't mind. I've seen dead bodies.
As you wish. No apparent hematoma on the body. It appears to have 3 fractured fingernails and a broken thumb to the left hand.
She didn't see the murderer until the last moment. No time to struggle, not even to adjust her hand as she fell.
A severe hematoma on the back of the cranium, a fracture to the occipital bone, and the lateral suture from the temporal area of the skull.
She cracked her head as she fell. Her head did not move once until it hit the concrete, signalling that she was stabbed before she even hit the ground.
Dilation in both pupils.
Why are her pupils dilated? Did she see the killer? Did she know him? Is it a possibility?
2 knife wounds between the second and third ribs, directed at the proximity of the heart. The blade was driven in deeply. The stab seemed to have been delivered from the back, from the left to the right.
It would have been impossible for the victim to see the killer. One thing's for sure, the killer is left-handed.
One stab disconnects the left pulmonary veins from the atrium, and the other slit right through the aorta and into the right atrium.
Is there a way to determine the height of the killer based on the stab wounds found on the victim?
From most cases, no, but the right atrium is severely disconnected with a deep cut. It's a sign that the killer had the reaching ability to drive the blade deep enough to reach the atrium. From the knife wounds in this body, 9 times out of 10, the killer stands at a great height, either through his height or his vertical ability.
Okay. Thanks, Coroner. When Tyson showed me the files, I immediately focused my attention to the first suspect, Sean Neal. I was to interrogate him the next morning. I remember him just sitting there, without a sound. I knew it would take all of my arsenal to get him talking. Mr. Neal, our sources show that you somewhat had a relationship with our victim, Miss Varn. Would you care to expand on that? I know all about you. I also know of your employment history. You were quite a good man with human anatomy. Any of this ring a bell?
I didn't do anything.
The autopsy report. Those are very precise cuts made on the victim. Only someone with your height could have performed a murder like this.
I didn't do anything.
The victim was stabbed between the second and third rib downward thrust. You are the only suspect in our books that can apply these sort of angles with a blade. And your knowledge of anatomy? I'm sure you knew exactly what you were doing.
I did not do anything.
Now you listen to me. I know all about your sick past with women such as Miss Varn. Now when are you gonna fucking confess? Own up, you bastard! I did not do anything!
While Detective Smith interrogated the silent yet monstrous suspect in Sean Neal, I was left with the much louder and ignorant Theo Rubin, our second suspect. Mr. Rubin is the owner of several nightclub chains within the city, one of which Miss Vaughan worked for before she was found dead on the shores. From the records found in the files, Mr. Rubin possesses a fiery and arrogant attitude. Finding out anything in relation to the murder would be a reach.
I'm the handsome fella who can resist.
Mr. Rubin, would you like to respond?
Fuck! Other people use a train or a fucking bus. Yeah, I used to live there, and yeah, I do use transport, but so does everybody fucking else.
My predictions were correct. Mr. Rubin didn't shift. Myself and Captain Helley were waiting for Detective Tyson in his office. Helley was needing answers and seeing where the investigation was leading us so far.
I hope you've had some progress on your investigation.
The interrogations with both suspects were contrasting in their moods, but both effective. Both suspects are intimidating yet defensive in their cases. It's too early to find a lead link where they aren't slipping any information.
Sean Neal's height matches the coroner's reported assumptions of the killer's height based on the body analysis of the victim.
That may be so, but he seems so sensitive to my questioning. He has a dark side, but if he were the killer, he wouldn't be able to contain it.
And how about the suspect you apprehended, Tyson? Mr. Teo Rubin?
Yes. Well, Mr. Rubin's arrogant attitude made it difficult to drain any information from him. We know he used to live nearby the crime scene, and that he knew the victim as she worked for him in his nightclub. He uses transport as well, which is a hint of the killer's profile.
It's too risky to assume that he's a prime suspect. He barely told us anything about him or his relation to Miss Vaughn. He's still adrift from the killer's profile, but I'm not ruling him out. I'm just concerned about how little we have on him.
So, Detective Smith, if neither seem to satisfy your approval, who does?
Honestly, I haven't the slightest fucking idea. We need to stop rushing to these maybe not suspects and actually find one that fucking fits!
Forget Detective Smith for now. He'll soon return in time. Look, for now, look over the files. Just look carefully. You might find something under the radar.